There was a young boy, I want to say he probably was about 3 or 4. Him and his twin brother both were brought up here. They were from out of the country, and both of the boys had substantial, very severe, both mental incapacities and physical incapacities. At 4 years of age, they were in wheelchairs. They had been their entire lives. They were nonverbal, so they could sort of smile and turn their head in the direction of some sort of stimulus, but they didn't talk at all. They were not responsive to the environment pretty much whatsoever. They were kind of responsive to each other. So I was asked to come in and see if we could get anything from these two boys, and I brought, at that time, it was my border collie Spencer, and we went in to work privately with them. And we didn't really get anything from them with the boys in the wheelchairs. It just didn't really happen. So they said, let's get them out of the wheelchairs. And they were incapable of walking. So when they took them out of the wheelchairs, they just lied both boys down on the floor, and they were just sort of next to each other on the floor. And the dog came over. And as soon as the dog came over, they both boys just settled down. And to this moment, it still brings tears to my eyes because I did not cue this dog to do it, but he was just one of those incredibly intuitive animals when I worked with him. He positioned himself and went between the two boys and lied down, right between them, just lied himself right down. Both boys settled down, and both boys turned their heads towards the dog and smiled. There was an entire room full of people in tears, including me. And when they pet the dog, because they did actually reach for him, it was not kind because they didn't have very good movement of their hands. So their hands flailed on him, and it was sometimes at the same time, sometimes, and they were looking around the room but smiling in his direction and then kind of flailing him, and the dog never budged. He just lied right there and let them do it. And to this day, that was to me like the most amazing thing to see how that animal, they'd been around lots and lots of people, but they probably had never had any interaction with an animal before. And that was their first interaction, and it just brought something out of both of them that was just amazing. To everybody in the room, it was just amazing. We continued to work with those two boys while they were here. We actually went in for weekly visits with them because they wanted to continue that. But they had gotten to the point that they recognized Spencer. So as soon as he came into that room, they would both smile and get super excited because he had come into the room. So it was really, that was a very special relationship that I had with those two boys. Therapy dogs are specifically used for emotional support, so we go in as a diversion. In the hospital setting, the dogs come in and it kind of just gets everybody's mind off of what's happening in that moment. So whether it's the family, the siblings, the patient that's actually been in the hospital, coming in and having the dog just takes their mind out of the medical field for that moment. So it's just a wonderful thing. In the school program, again, it just pulls that child out of the classroom, kind of makes that child stand out because they specialize, get to work with the dog, and that's a little bit envious to the other students in class. So, but what they usually come in for is just fun emotional support. So it's about engaging, it's about doing some tricks, it's about having conversations with them, it's about loving the dog and petting the dog and hands-on and walking the dog through the classroom or walking the dog around the hospital. Every once in a while we have been asked to actually assist with either physical therapy or occupational therapy on a request, which we will do if there's a staff member that's supporting that and has the plan as to what we're going to do. So service animals are specifically trained to work with one particular person, and they are specifically trained for public access that they can perform two necessary tasks for that person. So if that person had to go out in public or if that person was at home, there's at least two specific tasks that animal has been trained to perform in all and every situation. So they are a necessity. We sort of consider them almost like a medical apparatus. So if they were going out and they needed their wheelchair or they needed their walker, it's the same sort of thing. The dog is going with them because there's a medical need for that animal to be with them in those moments. Emotional support animals don't actually have any real training behind them. They are just designed as comfort animals, again, for one specific individual person. They do not have public access rights. They are allowed to go into locations where dogs are allowed to be, but they do not have any right to be in restaurants or any place that you might see, truly trained service dogs, because those dogs are specifically have a very large amount of training on them and are specifically geared to being that medical apparatus. Completely different from therapy dogs. Therapy dogs are sort of the opposite. These dogs are trained to not give support to just one single person, but to actually be incredibly comfortable interacting and giving support and emotional response to lots of individuals. So when you take a service dog out in public, they actually should never be interacting with the general public, because if they are, then they're not supplying their necessary task to their handler. When we take therapy dogs out, we want them to engage with the general public. So it's a very different. Therapy dogs do not have public access rights. We have to be invited into locations that we're going. They have a moderate level of training necessary to make sure that they're going to be safe with lots of strangers and lots of locations. But they are three very different categories of dogs, which often those lines get blurred because people don't understand the difference. I was actually approached by Shriners Hospital way back in 1999. They wanted to bring some animal-assisted therapy into their program, but they didn't see anywhere a program that fit the stipulations and requirements that they had. So they had approached me and asked me would I be interested in developing a program that would work specifically for Shriners hospitals. They wanted dogs trained a little bit at a higher skill level than other therapy units that they had seen. They wanted to have more medical requirements for the dogs as well as the handlers. There was a few specific tasks in terms of maneuverability that they wanted the dogs to be able to do. And they also wanted dogs to be able to come in as groups. So we needed to have a cohesive group of dogs that when they were visiting would be fine working with each other and all the things that happen in a hospital setting. When people ask if their dog could be a therapy dog, one of the things we seek out are dogs that are very comfortable with strangers, that just, if there's a stranger right there, the dog wants to interact with them, they're comfortable, they're appropriate with them. So our unit, specifically Canines for Kids, is a specialized therapy dog unit. There are lots of therapy dog units that are out there. To come into Canines for Kids, the dogs must have what we call a CGC certificate, which is put out by the AKC Kennel Club. It stands for Canine Good Citizen. And that is a sort of stepping stone certification, which allows us to know that this dog has a moderate amount of training, and that they don't need to be highly skilled trained dogs, but there has to be a moderate amount. So I can't take them into the unit unless they pass that test. Normally, before they come into the training program for Canines for Kids, I also will interview dogs that are coming up into that program. Some people think their dog is going to be perfect for this program, but the training program that we have here is a pretty tough program in terms of what we ask the dogs to do and the amount of stress we put the dogs under. So I want to make sure before I actually bring the dog into the training program that I've met the handler, I've met the dog. They do both seem, their skill level is appropriate, and they both seem like they're ready to actually take on that type of training. So the Canines for Kids class is fairly unique. I don't actually know of another program throughout the country that is run like ours. And I don't really know of another program that specifically trains pediatric therapy dogs, which is clearly what we do. So in the classroom environment itself, remember they're coming in with their basic skill set. So what I'm going to start teaching in the group class environment is comfort and mobility with lots of different pieces of equipment. So we need to make sure that these dogs can work along medical equipment. Handlers can handle wheelchairs and walkers with the dog there. The dog knows to get out of the way. So we teach a lot of skills that dogs haven't had before. There she is, good girl. So they do learn a come up behavior. So if we need the dog to be able to come up closer to somebody to actually interact, we need them to get off when they're asked to so that we can place the dog. We teach these dogs to back up so that they can move into very tight spaces. We teach them to turn in tight spaces. We teach a place cue where we ask them to place their head somewhere very specifically. So if I need somebody to make contact with them, the dog can put their head down where they need them to be. We teach a gotcha cue, which is, especially with little kids, they might grab them suddenly and hold on suddenly. We want to make sure we have a cue on that the dog's really comfortable. So again, when we start introducing the gotcha cue, it is really important to me, before we start this, that you start it at the lowest level possible. So do not come and grab a hold of your dog's ear or yank your dog's tail and see how that goes. That is not how we're going to train the behavior. So I just do a little bit of a tap, gotcha, and I give him a cookie. As the dog gets better and better, you can start adding a little bit more pressure. You can change the position. Don't just hit the same spot all the time, because that gets annoying to dog. Beep beep is look out for equipment, or we always call them incoming kids, where you might have a toddler that's just flying into the dog, but we want to give the dog beep beep cue, which just means look around because something's coming at you really, really fast. Continue with their leave it exercises. We have to proof these dogs that if medicine dropped or week-old bagel suddenly rolled out from behind something, we need to make sure the dogs aren't grabbing that in the moment, so we ask for a higher level of leave at cue to make sure that the dog stays safe. And lots of acclimation on sounds, equipment, lots of kids, lots of people, so that we kind of test these dogs for as many things as I can in an artificial environment. I want to try to test the dogs for as many scenarios as I can to see if we are going to have any issues and can the dog actually handle this. So our program is usually a 7-week program. The first 3 weeks of the class we do skill sets. So the first week is just to make sure everybody's skills look good. We start some additional visitation skills. The last 4 weeks of the class are specifically with kids. So I break down our age groups. So my dogs personally know when I put my vest on and I grab their bandana out of the drawer, they're going to work, and they know that, and they're prepared, and their skill set immediately kicks in, so they will immediately start acting, okay, we're going to work, this is what we're going to do when we get there. So I do consider them a working dog, because when they're visiting, that is their job in that moment.
We have a lot of fun. Just the reaction of the children that we get, the smiles on their faces when we come in and they see a 4-legged furry thing in the middle of the hospital. It's like so rewarding, because they don't expect to see the dog first, and then it kind of brings their mind away from really why they're there. So it's been a lot of fun.
It helps them calming and soothing and nurturing, and that in turn can lower patients' heart rates or help them with slowing their breathing down. We've definitely used it for anxiety reduction with some kids before here at this hospital. In addition to just making a more nurturing and comforting environment, more similar to what their home is like, where they have their beloved pets.
I also think it's extremely valuable. I've seen children that are quiet and shy have one of the dogs come over and sit next to them, and they almost sense the children that need them the most, or even adults that need them the most. It's another way to feel unconditional love, which of course is healing.
It's really rewarding to work with kids, because they are there for a doctor's appointment, some kind of treatment, and they and their parents have been through all these tough times, and when they see a friendly little fuzzy dog to cuddle with or to visit with or just give a treat to, it takes them away from that duress that they have going on right now, and it gives them a nice downtime. We often see doctors and nurses get down on the floor with the dogs too, because they need a hug too. And it benefits everybody. It's good for the dogs, it's good for the kids, it's good for the parents, it's good for everybody.